investing becomes more and more speculative and away from what we would call intelligent investing, the less we are able to have convictions and confidence in those future cash flows. So, value and growth are joined at the hip. They are two sides of the same coin. All intelligent investing is value investing. And it doesn't really matter if a company is going to grow a lot in the future, it's going to shrink a lot in the future, it's going to stay the same in the future. All three of those types of businesses can fall into the tent of value investing. All value investing is looking at the sum of future cash flows that a business is likely to deliver from now till judgment day, discounted to present value by a reasonable interest rate. And then we compare that to the price that it's being offered at. So at one price, NVIDIA could be a value investment, and another price, it could be a speculative investment. And the same applies to Microsoft, and the same applies to Berkshire Hathaway and a zillion other companies. So when Buffett invested in Apple, for example, he was not, quote unquote, buying something with low growth and value and so on. He basically looked at the future cash flows versus what he was paying for it. And the equation made sense to him. That is really the equation we are focused on, which is, like Buffett says, he says, Aesop says a bird in hand is worth two in the bush. And he says the question to ask is, how likely are there two birds in the bush, and how long is it going to take you to get those two birds when you give the one bird? And that's basically what investing is all about. So to illustrate the point a little further, the difficulties we run into in value investing, the definition of investing and value investing is painfully simple. The sum of future cash flows discounted back. The difficulty we run into is, even in the simplest of businesses, estimating those future cash flows is relatively difficult to do. And it becomes more and more difficult the further out in years that I go. Rahul gave a big disclaimer about no insider information to be disclosed, etc. But if I were to ask this audience, just a very simple question. You're insiders at Microsoft. Just tell me the next 10 years of cash flows. Give me the next 10 years of cash flow with an 80% or higher probability. And if you can do that, if you could give me those 10 years in cash flows with the 80% or higher probability, and you guys are insiders, so you guys are well positioned to give me that number. Rahul might break out in hives if you give me that number, but that's okay. We don't care much about that. I could then discount to present value. That would be relatively a simple exercise to discount that to present value. But my suspicion is that even Satya could not give me that number, or even Bill couldn't give me that number, because they don't know, and because it's a range, and that range could be pretty wide. And so investing becomes more and more speculative and away from what we would call intelligent investing, the less we are able to have convictions and confidence in those future cash flows. So my own response to that, and everyone has a different response to that. Someone like Nick Sleep, which some of you might have heard of, has a very different response to the future uncertainties. My own response to that is to try to take away those uncertainties as much as I can. So to give you an example, real world example, in 2004, I ran into a steel company based in Canada called IPSCO. These guys made tubular steel, kind of stuff that goes into pipelines and oil rigs and so on. And IPSCO was a stock that was trading at around $40 a share. They had issued guidance which said that in the next 2 years, in each of the next 2 years, their cash flows would be $15 a share. And IPSCO had no debt, and they had $15 a share on their balance sheet. So in this case, there was very low uncertainty about the next 2 years of cash flows, because the company is pretty much black and white telling you. And they weren't just coming out of these numbers just, out of thin air. They had long-term contracts with these pipelines, et cetera, to deliver steel in certain quantities and timeframes to them. So these were, hard purchase orders with specific timeframes for delivery, et cetera. It was not them making some sales forecast. The sales were already done. These were in the bag. So the certainty around those cash flows was extremely high. So the way I looked at it is IPSCO had 15 in cash, another 30 in cash coming in 2 years. That's 45 in cash. The stock's at 40. There's $1 billion plus of value in the plant and equipment and inventory and all that, which is free, not accounted for at all. So, what is the intrinsic value of IPSCO? Well, we don't know because we don't know what year three, year four, year five, etc. are. But my take on that was that it is unlikely that the intrinsic value of IPSCO is below the current stock price. And it was quite likely it was significantly above the current stock price just because of the economics of the $45 you were going to get in 2 years versus the $40 stock price. So I put 10% of my fund into IPSCO just with that much certainty that I knew that year three, cash flows could go to zero. Cash flows could even go negative. It's a steel company, it's cyclical. But I said, I just want to see how Mr. Market prices this thing in 2 years when there's $45 a share of cash in the balance sheet. So 1 year goes by and IPSCO announces another $15 a share in cash flows in year three. Hallelujah. We're in the money now. So now it's $60 coming in. The price of the stock had kind of drifted up and it was now trading at about $90 a share. I had held the stock for 14 or 15 months and I'm thinking, Mohnish, you don't know what's going to happen in year four. We have a double in 15 months. This is even better than what Microsoft does. You know, Microsoft don't give me a double in 1 year usually. It does in some years, but not every year. And I said, let's ring the register and move on. Right. And as I'm thinking through those thoughts, I wake up one morning and the stock's at 155 and some Swedish steel company offered to buy them for 160. And why that steel company did not make that offer a year ago at $60 a share, for example, is beyond me. But, as Mark Twain says, that truth is stranger than fiction because fiction has to make sense. And so, we had like a 4x in IPSCO in like 15, 16 months and we moved on. And I don't particularly try to put a company like IPSCO into a growth bucket or a value bucket or any bucket. It's just weighing what I'm putting out in cash today versus what I'm hoping to get in cash in the future. And the way I look at it is I'm looking for as much certainty as possible in those cash flows. And the more I go into the high flying tech names, which many of you may have overdosed on, the more I go into those high flying tech names, the more difficult it gets for me to estimate those cash flows in the future.